never thought the first time I'd speak to a Mafia boss would be with mud on my shoes, a trembling heart, and a dog who understood more about danger than any grown man I knew. But that morning, when I stood in front of the giant iron gates of the Cross estate, my voice didn't shake. Maybe I was too tired. Maybe I was too scared. Or maybe I already knew his daughter's life depended on me. My dog knows where she is. That's how I said it. Clear, steady, no begging, no fear, just the truth. My name is Theo, and I was 8 years old. My dog Ranger sat pressed against my leg, his injured paw shaking a little, but his eyes sharp and ready. We had been running for days, living in the woods, hiding from men who wanted to take my little brother Finn. Last night, while the forest was still dark, Ranger found something in the brush, something silver, something small, something that belonged to the little girl everyone was searching for. Her name was Ruby Cross, and she was missing. I waited at the gate, counting my breaths as security men moved around like they didn't even see me. Helicopters circled above the property. Search teams rushed across lawns. Everybody looked frantic except me. I had one job: bring Ranger here. Say the truth out loud. Hope at least one adult listened. Finally, a man with tired, angry eyes stepped up to the intercom. His voice was sharp enough to cut the air. "What's your name? And why should I believe you?" I recognized him immediately, even though he looked nothing like the pictures on the news. Sebastian Cross, rich, dangerous, powerful, the kind of man who didn't fear anything, except, maybe, losing his daughter. "I'm Theo," I said, "and this is Ranger. He found her bracelet near the creek, and 2 sets of footprints." Silence hit the air so suddenly it felt like the whole world inhaled. 2 footprints, 1 girl, 1 boy. I thought he'd yell, or ignore me, or send me away like everyone else always did. Instead, the gates began to open. When Sebastian Cross walked toward me, he didn't look rich or scary. He looked like a father who hadn't slept, who was holding onto hope by a thread. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes red, his jaw tight, like he was seconds away from breaking something or someone. "Show me," he said. His voice was low, controlled, but I could hear something underneath it. The fear, the kind I knew too well. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the silver bracelet Ranger had brought to me hours earlier. I'd cleaned the mud as best as I could. The little charm still sparkled in the morning sun as I placed it gently into his hand. He froze. He didn't say a word for a long moment. His fingers tightened around the bracelet like it was the last piece of his daughter left in the world. "That's hers," he whispered. Ranger's ears perked. He sensed the shift, the urgency, the danger. Warren, the head of security, stepped forward, trying to pull Sebastian's attention back to the search teams. "Sir, we need to." "No." Sebastian didn't look at him, only at me. "We follow the dog." I nodded once. Ranger rose to his feet, limping but determined. His injury didn't slow him. Nothing ever slowed him when a child needed help. As we climbed into Sebastian's black Range Rover, he looked at me in the rearview mirror. "Tell me everything," he said. So I told him. About the 2 men chasing me and Finn, about the night we ran, about the abandoned places we hid in, and about Ranger finding the bracelet caught in a branch beside the creek at dawn. Sebastian's knuckles went white around the steering wheel. "My daughter didn't wander off," he said. "She followed someone." "Yes," I said quietly. "A boy. Finn. My brother, my whole world." And now the missing girl, Ruby, had followed him too. Ranger lifted his head and barked once, sharp and urgent. He knew the trail, and he was ready. So was I. When Sebastian looked at me, really looked, something changed in his eyes. Not pity, not doubt, trust. It was the first time an adult had ever looked at me like that. "Theo," he said, voice steady and full of something powerful. "You're coming with me, and we're not stopping until both our families are back together." I felt Ranger press his head into my shoulder. A promise, a reminder. We had done impossible things before, but this time, a Mafia boss was driving the car, and the forest ahead of us was hiding more than just 2 missing kids. It was hiding the truth, a truth that would change all of us, forever. Ranger picked up the scent faster than I expected. The moment his paws hit the forest floor, his head lowered, and his whole body focused. Even with the limp, even with the blood on his fur, he moved with purpose. Sebastian and his men followed behind us in a tight formation, but no one interfered. No one questioned me. No one questioned Ranger. For the first time in a long time, it felt like maybe adults didn't automatically ruin everything. I walked ahead, one hand brushing through Ranger's fur to steady him. Sebastian walked right beside me. He didn't treat me like a kid. He treated me like someone who could help bring his daughter home. That mattered more than I could explain. "Is your brother hurt?" he asked as we moved deeper into the trees. "I don't know," I said honestly. "He's small, and he gets tired fast. But he's strong, stronger than people think." Sebastian nodded. "Sounds like someone else I know." I looked up at him, unsure if he meant Ranger or me. His expression didn't give anything away. We followed the trail down a ravine where mud sucked at our boots. Ranger stopped sometimes, circling, sniffing, pushing forward again with every ounce of determination he had left. I recognized the signs. He was tired, but he would never quit. When we reached the creek bed, I knew we were close to where he'd found the bracelet. The air smelled like rain, cold and sharp. I pointed to a patch of disturbed mud near the rocks. "They were here," I said. Sebastian crouched, his face tightened as he touched the ground. "Ruby's prints?" he said quietly. "And these smaller ones, your brother." He wasn't asking, he knew. A deep breath left him, like it was hurting his ribs. "We're on the right track," Warren said behind us, "but we need to prepare for the possibility the kids weren't alone." "They weren't," I said. Everyone turned to me. I didn't flinch. The men who were chasing us were close. Too close. Finn panicked. He ran the wrong way. I followed, but the men cut between us. My throat tightened. If Ruby was near the forest during the fireworks, she probably saw Finn running. She wouldn't leave him alone. She did what good kids do. Sebastian closed his eyes for a beat, just like her mother. Ranger suddenly lifted his head, ears pricked, body stiff. He barked once, then another, not loud. Controlled. Alert. "He has something," I said, moving immediately. We followed him as he climbed over fallen logs toward a narrow path most people wouldn't notice. Ranger's nose twitched faster with every step. Then he stopped abruptly, sniffing a broken branch hanging too low to be natural. A strip of pink fabric was caught in the bark. Sebastian's face cracked. "That's her dress." He took it gently, like it was made of glass. Before anyone could speak, Ranger growled low, a deep warning rumbling from his chest. His body angled left, toward the old lumber mill. My heart dropped. "That's where they take kids," I said before I could stop myself. Sebastian stood so fast the fabric slipped from his fingers. "What do you mean?" I swallowed. Hard. I heard the men talk once. They called it a holding place, a stop before they moved kids again. Warren cursed under his breath. Sebastian looked at me, voice steady in a way that made my spine straighten. "Do you know how to get there?" "Yes." "Then lead us." The closer we got, the heavier the air felt. Ranger limped but didn't stop. His whole body trembled now, but he kept going because Finn was somewhere ahead. And Ruby. Two kids who didn't deserve any of this. I could feel Sebastian's eyes on me sometimes. Not in a bad way. More like he was fighting between terror and hope. "You're a brave kid, Theo," he said quietly. "I'm just trying to keep my family together," I answered. "You're doing the same." He didn't argue. When the old mill came into view between the trees, I stopped breathing for a second. The place looked dead, rusted metal, broken windows, shadows in every corner, and yet it didn't feel empty. Ranger's ears flattened. He whined softly and nudged my hand. "They're inside," I whispered. Sebastian stiffened like I'd just fired a gun beside his head. Warren signaled his men to fan out silently. No words, only quick hand gestures. "Stay behind me," Sebastian told me. "No," I shook my head. "Finn won't come to you, but he'll come to me." He hesitated, then nodded once. "Then, stay close." We stepped through the broken doorway. The smell of dust and mold hit first. Old wood, rusty machines, damp leaves. My heart hammered so hard I could hear it echo in my ears. Then, suddenly, a sound, a small laugh, a child's laugh. Sebastian froze. "Ruby," he whispered. Ranger lifted his head and moved forward with a burst of strength he shouldn't have had. We rounded a corner and everything inside me flooded with warmth, relief, disbelief. Ruby sat cross-legged on the floor, telling a story with her hands moving in the air. And beside her, curled against her side like he belonged there, was Finn. My brother. My little brother. Finn. The word broke out of me before I could stop it. His head snapped up, and then he ran to me. "Theo!" he cried, and his voice cracked in the middle like something inside him finally let go. I caught him so fast my knees slammed into the ground, but I didn't care. His tiny arms wrapped around my neck, his body shook against mine. "I knew you'd find me," he whispered. And behind us, Ruby looked up at her father, her eyes filled with tears at the same moment his did. "Daddy?" The moment they reached each other, I felt something shift. Families were coming back together. But danger wasn't gone. Not yet, because behind the joy, Ranger growled again. This time, deeper, warning us. Someone else was in the mill. Ranger's growl rolled through the broken walls of the mill like thunder. Low, deep, a sound that came from his bones, not just his throat. I knew that growl. It meant danger was close. Too close. I tightened my arm around Finn as Sebastian moved instinctively in front of Ruby, shielding her with his whole body. Warren's voice snapped through the room in a sharp whisper. Movement. South wall. Quote, his men spread out fast, guns drawn, steps soft but full of intent. My heart pounded so loud I felt it in my teeth. Finn clung to my shirt. Ruby pressed herself into Sebastian's side. Ranger stood between all of us, injured leg, trembling but his eyes blazing. Then a board creaked somewhere beyond the rusted machinery. Someone was here, someone who didn't want Ruby or Finn found. Sebastian turned to me. "Stay behind me." But Finn tugged my sleeve. "Theo, they're back." My stomach twisted. "Who?" Sebastian asked. "The men," Finn whispered, voice small but certain. "The ones who said I'm merchandise." Sebastian froze, not with fear, with rage. Cold, controlled rage that made the whole room go still. I stepped forward, without meaning to. "We have to leave, now." But before we could move, Ranger barked, sharp, urgent, and a figure stepped into view. A tall man with a scar on his neck. Finn buried his face in my shoulder. Ruby gasped. Sebastian's jaw clenched so tight I thought he might break his teeth. The man smirked. "Well," he said, "looks like the merchandise grew." Quote. Warren lifted his gun, hands where I can see them. The man chuckled. "You're surrounded. You really think you're getting out of here?" Sebastian stepped forward, voice low and deadly. "You took my daughter. You hunted these boys. And now you're going to tell me who you're working for." The man didn't flinch. "Do you know what happens when you mess with state contracts? When you mess with child relocation networks? You pick the wrong fight." I felt my whole body go cold. He wasn't lying. I'd heard pieces of this. People paid a lot for kids. Kids like Finn. Kids no one would miss. But before fear could take over, Ranger snarled and stepped forward. Even hurt, even bleeding, he made the man flinch. Sebastian's eyes locked on me. "Take the children and go out the back," he whispered. "Now." "No," I whispered back. "They want Finn. I won't let him go alone." Warren glanced at me, then nodded once, recognizing something in me. Maybe the same thing that kept Sebastian standing like a shield in front of his daughter. "Boss," Warren said, "we can hold this position, but someone needs to get the kids out." Sebastian looked torn between staying and grabbing Ruby, between being a father and being the weapon these men were about to regret crossing. "I'll take them," I said. His eyes snapped to me. "You?" he asked. But before he could argue, Ruby stepped forward and grabbed my hand. "Daddy," she said softly, "Theo found me." Finn trusts him. Ranger listens to him. They're safest with him. It was the first time I realized Ruby truly believed that. She had trusted me before she even knew my name. Sebastian swallowed hard. Then he nodded. "You get them out alive," he said. "I don't care what it takes." Ranger limped to my side, pressed against me like he'd do anything to protect Finn and Ruby. Even if it killed him, I took Finn's hand. Ruby held my other, and with one final look back at Sebastian, who now stood like a wall of iron between danger and his daughter, I led us toward the back of the mill. But the scarred man laughed behind us. "Run all you want," he said. "There's no place you can hide from people like us." I didn't turn around, because I already knew something he didn't. People like him underestimate kids like us. They underestimate boys who survive foster homes by sleeping with one eye open. They underestimate girls like Ruby, who protect others even when they're scared. They underestimate dogs like Ranger, who would fight through blood and pain for the family he chose. And they underestimate what happens when a mafia boss becomes a father protecting what's his. We slipped out a broken doorway into the bright light beyond. But the danger followed. Through the trees we heard footsteps, voices, and Finn whispered the words that made my heart stop. "They found us." The moment Finn said they found us, everything inside me tightened. Ranger pressed against my leg, teeth bared, body shaking but ready. Ruby grabbed my hand tighter. Her small fingers dug into my palm, and I felt her fear like it was my own. We were only 20 feet from the tree line when I heard branches snapping. Heavy footsteps, more than one. Getting closer. "Stay behind me," I whispered. Ruby obeyed instantly. Finn tucked himself into my side. Ranger moved forward, low and steady, trying to shield us even though he could barely stand on his injured leg. Through the trees, shadows shifted. 3 men, not the scarred one. These were different. Bigger, dressed in dark clothes. The kind of men who didn't ask questions before grabbing a kid. Ruby's breath hitched. Finn whimpered. Ranger growled harder. But something inside me changed. I wasn't scared anymore. Not like before. Not after everything we'd survived. Because I knew someone was coming. Someone the men should have feared more than anything in this forest. One of the men pointed. "There they are. Grab the kids." I stepped forward before I even realized it. "You're not taking them." The man laughed. "Kid, move before you get hurt." Ranger barked once. Sharp, loud, a warning that vibrated through the trees. And that's when the forest behind us exploded with noise. Leaves shaking. Footsteps pounding. Metal snapping. Warren's voice boomed from behind the men. "Drop your weapons!" Quote. The traffickers spun around, startled, but it was too late. Warren and his team came out of the trees like shadows turning solid. Guns drawn, steps silent, movements sharp and practiced. Before the men could react, a 4th figure stepped forward. Sebastian Cross. He walked through the trees with a fury I'd never seen in an adult before. Not loud, not wild, cold, focused, deadly. His eyes locked on the men trying to take us. "You should have run when you had the chance." The men froze. Even I stopped breathing. Sebastian stepped closer, not raising his voice but making every word strike like a blade. "You touched my daughter. You hunted these boys. You chased an injured dog and 2 children through a forest. You think you can walk away from that?" The tallest man stuttered. It wasn't personal." Sebastian tilted his head. "It is now." Warren's team moved in, fast and clean, disarming the men and forcing them to the ground. Ranger barked and limped in front of us like he wanted to help hold them down. Sebastian turned his eyes to me. "Theo," he said softly, "are they safe?" I nodded, heart pounding. "Yes, we're all here." Ruby ran to him then, throwing her arms around his waist. He lifted her instantly, holding her like she was made of something he refused to lose again. Finn let go of my hand and reached for Sebastian too, unsure but hopeful. Sebastian didn't hesitate. He pulled Finn into his other arm. That was the moment something inside me cracked open. Because this man, this dangerous, powerful man, looked at my brother like Finn wasn't a burden or merchandise. He looked at him like he mattered. Like he mattered the way Ruby did. Like he was family. We walked back through the forest together, with Warren's men dragging the traffickers behind us. Ranger limped between me and Finn the whole way, exhausted but proud. When we reached the estate, more officers and emergency teams were waiting. Not the kind that scared me. The kind Sebastian had personally chosen. As soon as we stepped inside, Mrs. Chen wrapped Ruby and Finn in blankets and pulled me into a hug so warm, I almost forgot I wasn't used to being hugged. Everything after that moved fast. Medical teams checked Ranger and stitched his leg. Doctors checked Finn and Ruby. Security surrounded the estate like a fortress. And Iris, my old teacher, arrived with tears in her eyes when she saw me holding Finn's hand. "Theo," she whispered, pulling me into her arms. "You kept him safe." I leaned into her without meaning to. "I tried." "No," she corrected gently. "You did." Behind us, Sebastian spoke quietly to Warren and several officials I didn't recognize. Every word he said carried power, command, protection, and something else: responsibility. Later that night, after Finn fell asleep curled against me and Ranger lay warm and bandaged at our feet, Sebastian knocked on the door. "Can I come in?" he asked softly. I nodded. He stepped inside and sat on the edge of the bed. "You saved my daughter," he said. "I won't forget that." I swallowed, unsure what to say. "I don't know what happens next," Sebastian continued, "but I want you to hear this from me directly. You and Finn are not going back to the places that hurt you. You're staying here, with us, with people who actually care." My throat tightened. "Nobody else wants us," I whispered. He shook his head. "You're wrong. Ruby wants you. Ranger wants you. Iris wants you." He paused. "And I want you. Both of you." Something warm spread through my chest. Something new. Something terrifying and hopeful, all at once. "Is that allowed?" I whispered. A small smile tugged at his mouth. "It will be," he said. "I'll make sure of it." I looked down at Finn sleeping peacefully beside me, trusting me the way I had trusted no one else in the world. Then I looked at Sebastian. A man who wasn't just keeping a promise. He was building a family. And for the first time in my life, I believed I might actually belong in one.